Much. My name is Sambo Bello Ingawa. I am a veteran banker, an investment banker, commercial and then investment banker. And subsequently, I am a development economist as a background, and that's what I practice right now. Over the years, I have been involved with the textile industry, first as a banker and then subsequently as a development economist and development enthusiast. So to that extent, I have come in contact with the industry, the operators, and the dynamics of that sector and how it relates with the larger political economy of Nigeria.
Tell us about the role you have played in establishing one or maybe multiples of the companies within the textile industry.
Usually as an investment banker, I had a portfolio of textile companies. In fact, I had a portfolio of the value chain in the cotton value chain, right from primary production. I had clients that were large-scale farmers of cotton. I had clients that were large-scale merchants of raw cotton as raw material into industry. I had clients, a portfolio of clients that were concerned in the ginning industry, that would gin it before it gets into the textile industry. And then I had a portfolio of textile industry, and in all across these value chains. And then, of course, a portfolio of merchants that will take products from the textile industry as distributors and supply chain managers. So all along the value chain, I had the opportunity to come in contact with the industry and to relate with the industry vertically and horizontally, if you get what I mean. It gave me a broad perspective, a comprehensive perspective of the dynamics then of the industry and the value chain as it operates here and how it relates with the global cotton value chain or textile value chain.
Okay. Tell us your connection with is it SuperTech or companies that you
quite a few of them, principally as corporate finance officers or officials. We related with these companies and provided basically finance and financial advisory services. And to that extent, therefore, we got involved a little bit, or I would say, with the dynamics of each individual company and also the subsectors of the industry. So as officers that facilitated access to finance in whatever form, be it equity, be it loan, and anything in between, things that we call dequities, that we deployed to the industry, among many other industries, was what gave us some kind of insight into what was happening and some understanding of the dynamics of the industry and of the larger economy as well. Because more often than not, I mean, naturally, if you wanted to understand how a sector would perform and a member of that sector, company in that sector would be able to perform, one needed to understand the larger macro economy and the dynamics of it, that push and pull that affects the performance or the fortunes of the companies as they operate, and to even understand not only the national economic atmosphere, but come to think of it in these times globally. So you have to understand the global dynamics, because what happens in China may very well affect the humble farmer or the humble ginner or the humble textile companies that is operating in Funtua or Kaduna or Lagos or Kano. So it is a situation where we got the opportunity to study and understand, with a lot of sweat, of course, to study and understand not only local and national happenings, but also global happenings. So that's why we coined such terminologies like glocal, go glocal. Globalization is here and is affecting everybody at the local level. So we knew that we learned to act locally, but we had to begin to think globally. So the coinage glocal operators That was what we used to tell ourselves.
Tell us about the glory days
Wow.
of the Nigerian textile industry. Give us an understanding of how it was before.
Well, I would like to look at it right from probably pre-independence.
Right.
By the time Nigeria got independence, industry, production generally, not just industry, production right from primary production of in agriculture. You know, Nigeria had been preponderantly an agrarian nation, you know, and therefore the agricultural value chains that fed into the higher value chains of farming was what was actually the key growing factors of the Nigerian economy. So when it comes to cotton and textiles, the linkage between cotton production that we inherited from colonial days continued to grow and held a lot of promise for the future. And that fed the cotton industry that was producing competitively and creating surplus, was beginning to feed into the textile value chain, upper value chain, points of the value chain, ginning, textiles, you know, and exports in particular. So these things were growing. Agriculture was booming. Every household that I knew in 1960s was bending over and producing. We started going to the farmers early as when we were toddlers. We followed our grandparents and parents and senior uncles to the farm, and aunties. Everybody in the household was a producer. So surpluses were produced that fed into a growing industry. From one textile, we had 2, then 5, then 7. By 1980s, mid-80s, Nigeria had over 250 textile companies, you know. Now, up to 1960s, this was the phenomenon. It was growing, it was booming, it was full of promise. It had over 250 companies in the textile sector alone, employing over 500,000 direct employees, indirect employees over 1 million plus, you know, and producing over 600,000 tons of cotton that was feeding into our industries, growing industries, and the surplus being exported to even developed countries, you know, and so on. So Nigeria's agriculture and industry, manufacturing, especially agro-allied, especially textiles, were competitive globally, you know, and this was the position of the country. Now, fast forward to later years, beyond 1980s and so on, something happened, and then everything broke down. But to me, the watershed was the arrival of oil boom in 1972, starting from 1972, you know. Nigeria began to have access of free money from oil, and then everything began to go south, down, and to date. That's the problem. So what happened is the way we manage that wealth, that oil wealth, that has affected that fortune of our self-reliant growth, of productivity and competitiveness from real sector. And then everything switched over against real sector activity, production, manufacturing, you know, and whatever is in the real sector, in favor of non-real sector. In fact, creating rent and speculative opportunities that people could make money doing less than those that were doing more. But it was not intentional. A lot of, in my own understanding, policy errors, which up to date persist. For instance, it is not the wealth itself, by its very nature, that will create that kind of misfortune to a nation. It is the way the nation manages the wealth. Development economists all over the world define that as Dutch disease. Dutch disease meaning learning from what the Dutch economy suffered in the 1950s when they had access to natural resource wealth and became unfortunate, destroying their manufacturing base in Norway and Scandinavian countries. You know? So economists learned that, look, if a country is not careful, does not understand how to handle natural resource wealth properly, it will end up not a blessing, but a curse. And that's why they called it Dutch disease. And really what was happening, if you look clearly at what has been happening in Nigeria, when we began to receive those proceeds from petrodollars, when you sell crude, you obtain dollar revenues or dollar cash flow, because to me it's not revenue, because it's not earned. It's not earned from any productive work. So it's a cash flow. So what do you do with the dollars? We budget it and spend. That's what we say. We put it in the budget and then we spend. Our governments will put in the budget. We go to FAC and collect FAC every month and spend. But we don't spend dollars here, do we? We spend Naira. So how do we turn the dollar into Naira? What Nigeria has been doing is that she will keep the dollars in the reserve account and then simply print Naira and give to government in the federation account to be shared in FAC, monthly FAC distribution. And then we spend that money. Now, you print Naira. When you spend that money, when government spends that money, it's only increasing money supply in the economy. But without 1 grain of maize or 1 ounce of cotton produced. So there will be more money than goods. It will induce inflation. Inflation will make the production at home here more expensive than what is produced globally. So we lose global competitiveness. So we find imports cheap. So import substitutes our local production. So agriculture dies, manufacturing dies. And this is still going on. So this is the fundamental problem with the Nigerian economy that has upset the productive potential or our productive history and condemned us into import dependency and here at home speculative opportunities because of high inflation. You see, inflation I can count about 8 evils that inflation can cause an economy. One of it is speculative opportunities, rent profiteering. You can make money doing nothing but just buying an item, keeping it right on inflation and sell it and make money without adding any value onto it. I can buy the cotton. Instead of processing it, I keep it. Inflation will raise the price. And then when I sell it, I make money without any value added. So, and the problem is, because of the humongous amount of money that is being spent from the budgetary spending, that budgetary spending behavior, the amount of inflation is so high that it is more than the rate of return that you can get from either the farming itself or the textile processing. Because these two things, farming and textile and any manufacturing for that matter, all around the world, human civilization has brought human beings to the point where both agriculture and manufacturing are commoditized. That is, they have very shallow rate of return, and you have to compete globally. And the prices of those items, of those products from agriculture and from manufacturing, whatever you are manufacturing, whether it is a car or textiles or aeroplanes, they are now commoditized. Human civilization has brought us to commoditization of manufacturing and primary production.
And what are the implications?
The implication is that the rate of return you can get from that is, first of all, the prices of those commodities in those sectors, manufacturing, are globally fixed. That's why they are commodities. Commonplace. Everybody can produce a car, can produce aircraft. All you need to do is to buy the same equipment everybody is having, because you can buy any equipment and bring into your factory like anybody else. You can go and look at Chinese, what kind of machines they have, you can buy them. That's what we mean by commoditization. They are commonplace. You can go to America or Europe to see what kind of machines or equipment or instruments they are using. It's commonplace, you can also access. So there's nothing unique about the kind of machines anybody is using. There's also nothing unique even about the management or operational model or marketing model or production model that you use. All you need to do is to Google. ChatGPT will tell you. So it's a commodity. Knowledge is a commodity now. All right? It's commonplace. So the only unique thing that is differentiating between successful economy and those that do not succeed is the quality of the management of the individual macroeconomies of the nations. If you do your own economy with so much high inflation, you will cause cost of production more than the country that does not have high inflation. So if you look at China, for instance, the inflation level regime is no more than 2%, 3%. Here you have an inflation regime of 30%. So where you have the same thing, the same machines, the same models, the same operational models and everything, even by mere comparison of inflation regimes, you are at a disadvantage if your inflation is higher.
Many people have been accusing former President Olusegun Obasanjo to be part of the problem, especially within the textile industry. What do you think is the right thing to say regarding the problem? You have mentioned that this problem persists even beyond his own administration.
Well, you can see it all started by the way we use oil money. When we receive the oil proceeds in dollars, or even when we collect loan in proceeds, any dollar foreign exchange, foreign receipts that we receive, either from crude oil or from loans or even from grants, this is how we treat this kind of receipts, foreign exchange. We keep it in the reserve and then independently print Naira and give to government to spend. So that brings in Naira into the circulation.
Okay.
So with that amount of Naira, you cause inflation. And then it affects the exchange rate, because it means now there's more Naira chasing the amount of dollars that you have. So, now what happened was that for a very long time, government kept the exchange rate lower than the equivalent of the amount of Naira that was following it. So we always found the exchange rate cheap. So it encouraged imports. Now, if this phenomena started right from 1972, was it when Obasanjo was the head of state in 1999? This problem had started long before 1999. The death of our industries, the death of our agriculture had started long before 1999. And the culture of this budgetary culture has not changed up to date. Nobody is even talking about it. Nobody is focusing on that angle. What we are talking about, even recently, what people are talking about is ways and means. Ways and means is a recent happening. Babangida started experimenting with ways and means in 1986 or 87. And then subsequently, lately, Buhari did a lot of ways and means. But it is not the main elephant in the room, the big elephant in the room. The big elephant in the room is the entire budget of Nigeria since 1972, when you are monetizing oil proceeds into Naira, printed Naira. So arbitrary printing of Naira and giving governments to spend. So that has ballooned the amount of Naira quantity, chasing the dollar available. So at any exchange rate, you find it is cheap, given the amount of Naira that we are holding. Because all this Naira that government is spending through her budget comes back to household income or individual incomes eventually. So it is this same thing that and if you keep the exchange rate, no matter how, you see, the weakness or strength of a currency is not the quantity of the units of the currencies. It is the tendency of trade, the direction of trade. If you find a country importing preponderantly, that means we are finding exchange rate cheap. So if you want to stop it, you have to raise the exchange rate to such a point that it is prohibitively expensive to import.
Okay. Tell us the rules.
So I would say that I couldn't say that it was Obasanjo's 1999 and the reforms that killed industry. They had been dying. I recall, up to by late 1980s and 90s, many of the textile industries that we were financing were in trouble. Many of them we had to invoke liquidation because they couldn't pay debt. You see, when you have inflation in a country, high inflation will induce high interest rates. You get my point? Because a country with high inflation cannot have savings with lower interest rate than inflation, because nobody will want to keep his money at a lower interest rate while inflation is high. Because what you can buy today, even if you keep the money in the bank, when they give you the interest lower than inflation, you cannot buy it tomorrow. So it means it will encourage everybody to be buying the things that you don't even need. because by tomorrow it will be higher price because of inflation. So it induces consumption. And that's what we have become. Because we have always have had high inflation in this country. And remember, it's not just high inflation on its own value alone, on its own. It's in comparison to other countries whose goods may likely be coming into your own country. So even if you have 9% inflation in Nigeria, you may say it is low compared to 30. But if China has only 1%, still Chinese goods will come to Nigeria. So it means the competition starts from where? Qualitative macroeconomic management, so that we have to manage our macroeconomy to give us very competitive rates of inflation, so low enough to compete, to give our enterprises and companies a chance to compete with those Chinese, even if you have the same equipment, the same blah, blah, the same everything. Right. So it means when you have lower inflation that is competitive globally, you can be able to set interest rates also low. Because interest rates must be positive. What do I mean by positive interest rate? Above inflation. For you to attract local savings. And only from savings can you get investment. And only when investments happen can you expand the economy in real terms and get employment. And then address poverty and create prosperity. So if that growth does not happen, investment does not happen. In Nigeria, it doesn't happen because we don't have stable savings. Why? Because interest rates are negative. They are below inflation. But even at below inflation, they are too high. So the problem is high inflation. If you reduce it, then you can reduce conveniently interest rates.
So tell us the current state of the textile industry in the country.
The current, not just in textiles. All industries are in trouble. Not just industries. All productive sector in Nigeria is in trouble. Agriculture, industry, and any real sector activity that has to compete globally, and you have to compete globally, it's not your choice. Human being has come to a technological stage where globalization is inevitable. You cannot stop it. The transportation, communication, interaction is faster, cheaper, more convenient every day. So you cannot stop globalization. There are more automobiles, number of automobiles on Earth today, more than they were yesterday. And by tomorrow there will be more. So they will transport goods and people faster, cheaper, better. There are more aircrafts in the skies, more aircrafts today than yesterday. And by tomorrow there will be more because more are being manufactured. And they will carry people and goods faster, cheaper, better. There are more ships on the high seas today than yesterday. And by tomorrow there will be more with larger capacity than yesterday. They will ship goods and people faster, cheaper across the world. So now there's no boundary. The nature of money has changed. That is waves in the air that you send money all around the world. You can sit in your bedroom and order goods and then they will come in. Now if you try to even stop the movement of goods, you know what happens? What has been happening in Nigeria is what will be happening. That you will corrupt the people that you send to the border to stop it physically. So you can only use intelligent policies like price adjustments to make it expensive to import so that you don't even you can avoid all that corruption that can happen on your borders, and so on. And then you don't have to incur the administrative cost on trying to stop what is unstoppable. So these are the kind of issues that we need to look at. So it means we need to generate reform policies as against, but most importantly, is to move that big elephant from the Nigerian economic room, engine room. The big elephant is what? Creating arbitrary money through the budget spending of government. Let's get the government to be spending that same money in a more intelligent way without inflicting high inflation in our local economy. Because if we inflict high inflation, we are making our industries, our agriculture, and all other industries that because they have to compete globally, we are making them uncompetitive. So it has more implication, not with textile sector per se, even if you give them money. But this situation has not changed. They will still lose it in the next 5, 7, 8 years.
Right. What do you think the current few textile industries that are operating, such as the one we are referring to in Funtua?
I only hope they don't die, because some of them that I know their situations right now, they, they, they are the most tenacious ones, you know, and they too are on the brink. I hate to say so, but even conceptually, when you think about the trajectory, all of them must be on the brink. And let me not make you, apprehensive. I think the reform is necessary. We need to reform the whole direction, the whole structure of the economy. We have to block all opportunities of rent and speculative profits. And one key thing that brings about speculative opportunities and rent profiteering and corruption is highly inflationary environment. Because I tell you, what is corruption? Corruption is making money without work. Even the ordinary thief, what does he do? He just takes from what he has not worked for. So even if there's any way human beings can just make wealth or live in prosperity without working for it, that's corruption. Right. So a whole society can be corrupt by not working for its own. So the way we have been doing, we have been acquiring things, infrastructure, and you can see the infrastructure has been created multiple times from 1960s to the per capita infrastructure is more today than in 1960s. But today we are not productive, but the people in 1960s were productive. Is it infrastructure that is limiting us? No, something else. And this is what I'm telling you. It's the way the macroeconomy is managed. And the way it is being managed, it is creating hyperinflation. Hyperinflation kills productivity.
Right. What do you want the 19 northern governors to do, particularly regarding the textile industry in the northern region?
Not just in textile industry, but textile industry is part of all the gamut issues that is constraining industrial growth. Okay? I mean, they are part of the same ship, the same boat, the same vehicle that we are journeying towards development. So, and they cannot be faster than the vehicle they are in. All right? So look at the vehicle. What is wrong with it? I'm not telling you it is this hyperinflation. And this hyperinflation is coming from the macroeconomic budgetary process, which affects everybody. So what the governors can do, or any governor can do, if he wants to save production, including agriculture, including every industry, not only textile, take about tanneries and leather industry. When I was engaging with them in mid-90s, in Kano alone, we had over 200 tanneries. Today, they are less than 5. So every industry is dying. Every production is dying. And unfortunately for us in the north, 70% or so of our population are only alive when production is alive. So if production is not alive, 70% of northerners must be poor. All right? So what they need to do, the northern governors or any governor, in fact, any governor in Nigeria needs to do, if the federal government does not do it, is to go to the federal government and raise an agenda of national economic reform. Because this issue, no state, no region can create its own inflation rate. No state we cannot be asking the governor. If we understand that it is inflation rate, interest rate, and exchange rate, that the gamut and the interplay of the three, that is the problem. None of them on their own can create their own inflation and interest and exchange rate for Kaduna State, for Katsina State, for Sokoto State, or for Lagos State. It's the whole national issue. So it has to come from a national policy reorientation, reform. Not to use money, oil money, or any foreign proceeds in the way they have been doing since 1972. This is what it has brought us. Not only has it disenfranchised our people, make our people poor, it has caused all these crises, insecurity crises. Because when people are disenfranchised and they become radicalized, and others. So they have to approach the federal government or the national government to raise a national. Now we are talking of restructuring. This should be one of the first item of the agenda. In fact, the very early, to me, the most important agenda on how to restructure the fiscal budgetary process such that it does not, it should stop creating inflation by mere budgetary implementation. Because through budgetary spending, from government, you are inadvertently, I'm not saying that it is deliberate, they are not aware of it. They are inadvertently creating hyperinflationary condition, which is making the entire economy, particularly industry and any real sector activity, uncompetitive.
All right. When it comes to the issue of understanding that the policies are implemented, many a times Nigerians will say that they don't even need new policies. Do you agree?
How can
they are saying
how can
that they must say
how
that
can
they always say that, look.
well I cannot subscribe to. You see, let me tell you, the parlance, the cliche, is that we have had all the plans, all the strategies, and all the blueprints and what have you, agendas, and so on. So we are tired of that. Of course, it's understandable, it's legitimate, because nothing has worked so far. But let me tell you, this idea of the linking budget to inflation is novel, because I do not hear you people in the media talking about it. I don't hear it in the policy cycles talking about it. What they are zeroing in even recently, which is good, because prior to now, nobody was even talking about money supply as an angle that is distorting the economy. They are blaming, however, only ways and means. Ways and means is a negligible part of the whole equation. Okay? It's negligible because imagine all the size of the budget since 1972 up to date, when I allege that they are all inflationary. So what little amount of ways and means that started only recently could have accounted for all the things that we have seen all through the 50 years? So it is relatively novel, an idea to start looking at that direction, that it is the entire budget, not just ways and means, that is causing the inflation. And inflation is actually destroying everything in a globalized world. That's just the message. And what the cliche is that we have beautiful plans, it is implementation that is the problem. No, I don't agree. A beautiful plan gets implemented. If you think, people will say, whatever you do in Nigeria, corruption will destroy it. When you are planning, why wouldn't you bring in the factor of corruption and know how to address it within the plan? So it is the plan that is incomplete. No matter how difficult dealing with corruption is, you have to bring it in and address it. And in this case, what we are talking about here, if you look at this issue that I'm talking about, that the budgetary process is causing inflation and blah, 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 it is subsequently the inflation condition, the inflation is distorting and creating opportunities for wealth without work. And that is corruption. So if you don't plug it, corruption will always continue. So that this idea of the budget and how it introduces new money, so what have you experiencing? Growth. But it's just monetary growth. More money, but no wealth.
All right.
This idea of it has to be comprehensive. And it is the inflation. I mean, it is the inflation that is predisposing to the opportunities that people have to make money without work, and that is the opportunity for corruption.
All right. Assuming there were no any challenges or problems with the budgetary process that leads to the inflation and all that, leading to the collapse of the industries.
Yes.
What would have been the result?
Oh, fantastic!
Of, growth,
fantastic.
In the Nigerian textile industry.
Fantastic. That's a fantastic question. All I would ask you to do is to rewind back to 1960s up to 1970, and imagine if there was no such money from oil and how we mismanaged it, causing inflation. The trajectory of growth, real sector growth, industries and agriculture, as we started right from 1950s and 60s, would have continued. And by now, where would you have been? Without any interruption. It is the oil boom, the money from oil boom, and how government is treating it in her budget process that caused it. Assuming it wasn't there, how would you, I described to you how in 1960s agriculture and industry were booming and growing and exponentially.
Do you think people have reached China?
At 60s, 1968, our economy was better than China. Our economy was better than Korea. Our economy was much better than Malaysia. They came in 1963, and we gave them capital, we gave them know-how, technology, how to manage palm trees for palm oil. We gave them seeds. We were champions of the world in all this: cotton, groundnut, palm products, rubber, even to a certain extent timber, hides and skin, gum arabic. But this thing came, and they gave us, government began to use this money to supply money in the circular and giving us free money. So who will go and start work while you are having free money?
The Odoji Award.
In fact, even beyond Odoji, the mere fact that government is spending money that is not representative of something in the market to buy, it means now you have, because you have money, whatever is on ground, especially when it comes to imported items, are cheap. So why should I go and produce under the sun if I can just simply, well, government is supplying me the money for doing little, I get the money, and then I find foreign exchange and import materials cheap. Do you think I will go under the sun and work? Even if I go and work, the inflation that has been caused, is making the goods that I will produce uncompetitive globally. Even my neighbor will not buy my own because that of China is cheaper. And you cannot stop those goods from coming in. That's what globalization means. So it's up to you to produce with cost advantage, cheaply enough to compete.
Locally.
And that's what we did in 1950s and 60s, before oil. But by the time oil came, we lost it.
So now, no matter how much the government will pump into the
How much?
textile industry without this economic reform, is going to be like taking money and like burning money.
We have done several cycles of that. From my experience, every 1 decade or so, we'll look over our shoulder and say, look, our industries have collapsed, so let's give them money. We throw money at them. And then they use it 5, 7, 8 years, again they collapse again because of this factor. That's still the big elephant in the room.
Okay, with this your policy and analysis, have you reached out to
Yes, I'm reaching out now.
Makers, for example.
I'm reaching out now. It's the same question I was through at, why didn't you reach out to them with this?
No, it's not just what, I just want to know.
No,
if
what I mean...
I'm coming, I just want to know if you have made effort and maybe you were not encouraged.
Well, you see, what I mean to imply here is that everybody should be responsible enough to generate and think through and come up with ideas, and so on. And the process of incubation of ideas is not as straightforward for a nation whose momentum is in a particular direction. You see, Nigeria is a country that believes in, for instance, free lunch, subsidies, and handouts, and things. Why? Because right from 1972, when this started, government came and took, with that money, government felt it had enough money to give us everything free, or as subsidized as possible. And they told us not to even pay tax, so I don't have to work to pay tax, And that has subsisted for 50 years now. People have been born within it, and they have born other people, and those people now, the second generation, are even adults. So we know nothing but that. So it's very difficult for you to begin to change the thinking. But it will come incrementally. And that's why I have to thank you so much today for giving opportunity for these kind of discussions to